Welcome to Divorce Talk with Nicola Beer, a show dedicated to creating change and emotional healing for executives, professionals, and expats in the various stages of marriage breakdown and divorce. Discover insightful strategies to better manage your personal affairs and learn secrets to creating more happiness, love, and success in your life today.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Louise Crooks, your host, and our listeners get to deepen their healing physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and listen in on topics they care about. If you or someone you know is looking for alternative treatments or coaching for a specific issue, here is the place to come. If you want to alleviate your struggles and challenges and step into what's possible, come in and listen to the amazing expertise of these holistic practitioners and coaches. It could make all the difference. All right, so without further ado, we are jumping into the third episode in our series. We are talking about saving your marriage and how to overcome parenting difficulties. And today we are talking about how to protect your children through divorce and overcome co-parenting challenges. This is the third episode in the series. On the first episode, we talked about should I stay or should I go, making difficult decisions in a struggling marriage. In our second episode, we talked about how to save a marriage, avoid divorce, and be happy again. And today, as I said, we are diving into the next topic, which is really about, looking at how you can protect your children through divorce, with all the emotions coming up through that experience. And also, how you can overcome those co-parenting challenges that also arise when emotions are high. So I want to welcome back our expert guest, Nicola Beer. Welcome, Nicola.
Hi, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. It's been such a fascinating journey, so I'm really delighted that you're here to, take us through this next step. And just want to share with our listeners that Nicola is the go-to expert for people going through divorce or wanting to save their marriage. She's a best-selling author of 4 books, and she's been featured on NBC, ABC, CBC, Huffington Post, and more. Just amazing what she's been doing. And she works with individuals and couples internationally. So it doesn't matter where you are, she's able to support you on your journey. And she helps folks transform their marital situation and also works with children, or rather works with, parents to support their children and, parents or people who are adult children, who are still healing from the experience of divorce. And I know, Nicola, you can speak very clearly to your own experience of that as well. So I think that's where we should get started, and dive into, our first question, which is, so many people, get involved with fields like yours because they've been inspired by their own life experiences. And I know you dealt with some traumatic issues as a teenager going through your own parents' divorce. So, can you tell us a little bit about, these experiences and how it has shaped your practice?
Absolutely. I'd love to. And yes, definitely I got into this field because of my childhood experiences, being a child of divorce, growing up in a family where my parents fought a lot and then eventually got divorced. And divorce was one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing that happened to me, definitely as a child anyway. And even when I did my grief and loss certification in the UK, I noticed they make you chart all of your losses
Yes.
Because you need to work on your own losses at the beginning, and the divorce was right down there as a huge loss.
Yeah.
And the reason it's a loss for me personally was because my mum had a breakdown following the divorce. Raising 5 children alone was extremely difficult with very little money, and she didn't have time for us, so she became quite aggressive and was really struggling herself.
Yes.
And my dad, they didn't have a very good marriage. My dad had no money because he left, what we did have to my mum, and so he went and started a new life a few hours away, and so we didn't see my dad, very often, maybe once every 6 or so weeks.
Yes.
And there's 5 of us, so
wow.
time was divided. So I felt angry, I felt abandoned, I felt not very loved and lonely, it was just such a difficult time. And if you're going through a divorce at some point, or if you're going through a breakup, as a child, I remember feeling and thinking, what's wrong with me?
Yes.
Why doesn't my dad love me enough to see me all the time? Why doesn't my mum give me time? Why is she shouting? Why is this happening? And just not really understanding.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not here to blame my parents at all.
No.
We should deal with things in the best way that we can.
Yeah.
But I always can't help thinking, if my mum had some support, and if my dad had some support, then it would have been as better for them and better for us, because we had no communication. We didn't know what was going on. And I always pictured divorce as a child like it is in the movies.
Yes.
And divorce in the movies is where both the parents, they fight, they lovingly want you, and you can choose which home you go to, and you have all these, 2 birthdays, all this wonderful things. And it wasn't like that at all. My dad went, my mum couldn't cope, and all she could say was nasty things about my dad.
Yes.
It was hard.
Yes, I can imagine.
And so, divorce doesn't have to be a disaster. My older sister, then going back about 5 years now, she went through a divorce, and her 4 children she has were also affected in different ways, and it just brought up all of the different ways that me and my siblings were affected.
Yes.
Because it does children differently. And so seeing, again, even when I'm an adult now, her children suffer, I thought this is an area where parents need support, and through supporting parents, they can support their children.
Yeah, that makes total sense, Nicola. Yeah, I think it's really powerful that you've been through this experience, as a child of divorce, to really have this first-hand experience. And I'm sure that there were so many different emotions that you were going through at the time that you wouldn't even have understood. So, this is such powerful work that you're doing. So thank you for doing it. Someone needs to really be a support to these parents out there. And when you think about the number of people who do get divorced, it's such an important service that you're providing. Otherwise, you have these people going out into the world as adults, who really have a lot of pain that they haven't resolved, which can show up in different ways in their lives, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it affects. I have parents as well who they're having anxiety attacks or panic attacks, depression. It's a huge loss, and I don't think that people just expect you in society to just get on with it.
Yeah.
And by getting on with it, you're often not really dealing with the issues, and like you say, it can come back. It can come back in other relationships and in other areas as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you've experienced that yourself, haven't you, Nicola?
Yeah, I've experienced troubles in my own relationships because I thought that, I associated money with love because my mum kept saying that my dad didn't love us because he wasn't giving us any money. So I thought, well, if someone gives you money, then they love you.
Yeah. Wow.
And a difficulty that I went through as a teenager and even as an adult, which I picked up and only started when my parents, all the breakdown happened, and that was issues with food, not eating, and patterns like that, bulimia, and turning inward. And I think, if children are given a good way to cope with these feelings, and they don't get stuck onto the other behavioural habits.
Yeah. Well, and I guess also the earlier you can deal with these things, the less likely they are to show up in adulthood as well. You know, they can go ahead and lead fulfilling lives without the trauma of that divorce can create.
Yeah, divorce doesn't have to mean disaster for children.
Yeah.
They can have, if they've got two loving homes, if they've got support to deal with their feelings, if they know that it's not their fault and that they're loved, they're not used in between. So, I mean, there's different ways you can protect children, and that then they can flourish.
Yeah.
That's really what I help parents to realise.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So what sorts of emotions do you commonly see divorced parents dealing with, and how do you help them, Nicola?
Well, there's all sorts, really, I guess, as you can imagine. There's a lot of frustration and confusion, especially if you weren't the one to end the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So people can get stuck in the why questions.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? What's going on? Why are they doing this? Trying to understand and over-evaluate. So some people can get stuck in that. There's often a lot of fear and anxiety about what's going to happen in the divorce settlement, what's going to happen to the children, what's going to happen financially, what's going to happen in terms of the family home or logistics. So there's a lot of anxiety that parents need support in calming. And there can be a deep sense of hurt and loneliness.
Yeah.
Especially loneliness if you have children and it's you don't have your children for that night or that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Some parents, they really just don't cope well at all.
Yes.
So that they really feel that pain. So
yeah.
In terms of the way I support them, I focus on helping parents with this emotional roller coaster to reduce their stress, to focus on their own confidence and happiness so that they're better equipped to support children. Mm-hmm. One of the major emotions that I mentioned yet is anger.
Yeah, I can imagine. And bitterness, I can imagine too.
Yeah, anger, bitterness. So,
and blame, does blame come in there as well?
Yeah. So, I've worked with men, quite a lot of men and women who have been cheated on by their spouse.
Wow.
Especially if their partner is still with that person.
Yeah.
But even if they're not, I mean, there's such a lot of anger there about they've ruined it. That they would say, "You've ruined my life. You've ruined the church's life. How could you do it? How could you do this to me? I trusted you." And even after the divorce, they can still carry that intense anger, and that clearly comes out, unfortunately, when they're with their children, or when they're in a supermarket, or when they're at work, because there's so much inside of them that still needs to be released.
Yeah.
It just, something triggers them and out it comes, and helping parents to deal with all these different emotions and to feel stronger in themselves. And I have a program which is called Strengthen Children Through Divorce. And it's about, first of all, part of it's helping the parents deal and release their emotions, and then they can technique the children.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Nicola.
Yeah, so it's a really good process. And I also help them. I cover different things right from the beginning of how to tell the children about divorce, how to minimize the stress and anxiety for children, because many parents say, well, should we tell our children straight away? And unless you've got all the answers for children, like where are they going to stay, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, then they get anxious. So one of the things I go through is what are the most common questions that children do ask.
Yeah.
Then looking at how to work with a controlling or a nightmare ex. And most parents will say to me, you don't know my ex, Nicola, which is a fair point, because I don't. But how to deal with situations where you feel you're being treated unfairly, or you feel your children are being treated unfairly.
Yes, I can imagine. That's a really tough one. I've seen that happen actually with a family member. She got divorced, and the kids were quite young, probably like 7 and 9, something like that. And there was so much bitterness from the ex-husband and anger and hurt, I think, and he really lashed out through the children and how he behaved, manipulating this family member by, what he was doing with the children, and it was a very ugly situation. So I can imagine that, handling that must be quite the challenge. I'm sure that happens a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just learning to cope with that and how you can inspire and motivate your spouse to get on your side. There are ways, and many people have joined the program and thought, there's no way, Nicola, that I'm ever going to be able to speak to my ex again.
Yeah.
They've gone too far. We can't even be in the same room together.
Yeah.
And they've been surprised at learning the communication techniques and the influencing techniques that I teach them, how they're actually can then...
That's amazing.
And when that happens, that's great for the children.
Yeah.
That's
huge.
The best gift you can really give the children, yeah.
Well, and it probably gives them a sense of peace as well, There's probably multiple benefits there, I can imagine.
Yeah. Another thing I cover is, having studied grief and loss in the UK, I realised that actually in society we don't really have a lot of details on how to deal with grief or loss.
Yeah.
We hear, we see death in films and on soaps and everywhere, but then no one really talks about the natural emotion that follows the grief and what to do and how to cope.
Yeah.
So I cover that in detail so they can support their children, and also how to watch out for the symptoms that children have. Noticing, and I'll talk about that later, the warning signs. So
yeah. It's interesting as well because, you probably find that a lot of people out there that think that divorce is a reason for grief and loss to come up as a big part of the journey, It really is like a death in a sense, isn't it? That there's a huge transition there, and, that there is that grieving process that needs to happen and to allow that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not just there's so many losses at once when it comes to divorce, for adults and for children. There's a loss for the children of the hope that the family life is going to be all together.
Yeah.
Their dreams are shattered. Sometimes it can be the dreams that are shattered that can be the most devastating part of it. We're no longer have family holidays. We're no longer going to have our Christmases the same.
Yes.
What's going to happen on my birthday? Then they might change schools. They might change. They will change routines. They're often if they're living between two parents' homes, or they've got different parents coming over to look after them. Everything is a change, and that's a loss.
Yeah.
Because it's a loss of their old way of life. It's a loss of that. So, and also not being able to see the parent whenever you want to.
Yes.
So one of the major things I cover in the Strength of Children Through Divorce is how to be an effective long-distance parent. It's especially powerful and important in the Arab world where I am living now, and really for any expat parents. Sometimes when divorce happens, the other person will leave the country with the children, the mum or the dad. And so then they have to have and be there for their children in as much way as they can. So I think that's a really important topic to cover.
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
program.
And really, whether the parent isn't, I can imagine that distance creates a huge issue, but, even just living in another town, not having your father or your mother there, all the time, there's a transition that happens there too. There's emotions that come up with that as well.
Yeah, because my dad moved an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
And we only saw him, once 6 weeks, once every 8 weeks, and that was a huge loss. And of course, as children, you can't do anything about that. You can't go and see them.
Yeah.
When you're young, you have to rely on wait for your parents to come and see you, and obviously they've got things going on, and when it becomes sad. Yeah.
I'm sure also and there must be difficulties that come up as well, Nicola, when you have one of the parents remarry really quickly and they have a new family, new kids on the scene as well, that must also create a lot of difficulty for the child who's just trying to deal with the actual divorce itself, and then they've got this extra piece to look at too. Is that something you look at?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes they can really like the new parent, new partner, but they for the loyalty to the other parent.
Yes.
They feel guilty for enjoying time with the dad and let's say dad and the new wife, or the mum and the new partner. So it can be really confusing. Like children often can feel that they have to take sides.
Yeah.
And they often don't know how to deal with that, how to be. And obviously sometimes they can be very resentful. They can see the other person as stealing their mother or their father away from them, stealing their mother or father away from their other parents. So there can be a lot of anger and frustration and confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes total sense. So you also talk about focusing in on handling the concerns around the behavior of children when they're going through a divorce, like withdrawal, anger, and all of those things. Do you want to say a little bit more about that, Nicola?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 main warning signs that to look for when when you've gone through a divorce or going through a divorce, just to check that your children are okay. And the 3 main warning signs are turning inward.
Yeah.
So this is where children become depressed, feeling bad, isolate, withdraw, have a change in eating patterns, either overeating or not eating.
Yeah.
And other things that just completely turn themselves in.
Yeah.
And if that does happen, it's really good to encourage them to talk to a family friend, to talk to someone so they can, or someone they trust, if not the parents, to let out their emotions so that they can become, again, re-engaged with social things. I've worked with some parents where they said to me, Kate and her daughter, Susan, she said that her daughter, or Susie, they called her, her daughter Susie just wouldn't see her friends anymore. She didn't want to go to parties. She didn't want to do anything. She was 16, and she just completely didn't want to be around them. And then when I spoke to Susie herself, it was because she thought that she felt so negative inside that she thought that when she sees her friends, she's bringing negativity to them, and she doesn't want to bring negativity to them. So she was just herself to herself.
Yeah, it's amazing how kids, channel their feelings in different ways that you don't even expect necessarily.
Mm.
What other things would you... Yeah, go on.
Sorry, Karen.
I was going to say, what other things do you cover in your Strengthening Children Through Divorce program, Nicola, that you'd like to share?
Well, I just think the other warning signs that I was just talking about is there's the anger and the aggression,
Yes.
which is pulling or not refusing to do things. So passive aggressiveness is where children and adults do it as well, but where children say, well, I'm not going to cooperate, so I can't express my anger to you, maybe sometimes verbally. What I'm going to do is I'm going to refuse to get dressed. I'm going to refuse to see the other parent. I'm going to refuse to go to school. And that's another way they can turn outwards. That's another warning sign. And guilt. Often children can think that it's their fault. And so helping parents what to do in all these three situations.
Yeah.
Looking how to help children who feel the guilt, how to help children that turn outwards, and how to help children that turn inwards.
Powerful. I relate so much to this, Nicola, because I know growing up, my parents were always on the verge of divorce. And, I remember, for myself, I think at the age of 16, suddenly I completely lost my appetite and I couldn't eat. For about 3 months it was like that. It was horrible, and got really depressed, and I didn't understand it myself. This was like, seemed to be happening to me. And, so that was a big thing. And then, my brother did the opposite. He was the one turning outward and being very aggressive. I found out later he was bullying people at school, not doing his homework, getting into trouble at school. So I can totally relate, even though, our parents didn't end up getting divorced. We lived in a battlefield for a good decade, and, it really affected both of us. And so I can totally relate to how, these things are showing up with these kids, and what can happen. It's really powerful that you had such insight into this, and, just even knowing what the warning signs are, I think is really helpful for parents.
Yeah, absolutely, and giving them the tools to, once they spot it, what to do.
Yeah.
And again, there isn't a one strategy suits all situations. So, I give different examples, different ways of how to handle different situations.
Yeah.
Throughout the program.
Yeah. So, what can parents actually do to support their children through divorce?
Well, there are many things. I would say that the most important thing is educating themselves on how to deal with grief and loss, like I mentioned, knowing how to deal and how to handle loss. And the main thing within this is allowing children to express their feelings.
Yes.
And letting them know that all feelings are welcome.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty new to a lot of people.
Yeah, and this is where I see parents unintentionally make mistakes.
Yeah.
And so I had a lady come round the other day, Rita and her daughter.
Yeah.
And she was describing what was going on, and she's got in her words, a nightmare husband or a nightmare ex, and they've been separated for a long time. But he's been very controlling in her words, and so she was getting quite angry and upset. And she was saying, it's affecting her daughter who was there, and so she's crying. And I told her to stop crying, that she needs to get softer. And this girl was 11 years old.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm really sorry. I have to just say that it's really healthy for children to cry.
Yeah.
And it's really healthy for adults to cry.
Yeah.
When you're experiencing a loss. And to not ever say, don't cry and stop crying or wipe your tears.
Yeah.
Because that makes us feel, I'm not accepted unless I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm not wanted unless I'm in a good mood. And therefore that makes us want to go away and we learn then, okay, I'm only accepted if I'm this way and I'm not accepted if I'm feeling another way. And that's when we isolate.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Nicola. Wow, that's so powerful because I think there's so many people, especially, I think from a society perspective, we get pushed into this idea that we need to have this positive attitude and we must, mustn't feel any negative feelings. And yet, the negative feelings need to be dealt with, right?
Yeah, and they go. Once you feel them, once you cry, you have the relief, and then you work through it. You can't skip through any grief. You can't skip through it. You need to go through it and get out of it. And so I hear parents say, don't cry and don't feel bad or be strong. And I remember being told that I had to be strong through my parents' divorce, my younger brother and 3 sisters. And I found that really hard because I thought, well, I don't want, how do I be strong? How do I do it?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do it. It's not human to be strong. You've got to be true to your emotions and your feelings. And that's the same for parents and children going through a divorce.
Yeah. You put a lot of pressure on children, don't you, when they get given those kinds of instructions to be a certain way. In fact, taking on adults, ideas around, being strong and all of those kinds of things that don't necessarily apply to them, at that age. They need someone to be strong for them, in a sense. The parent needs to be the source of strength, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the most common things is saying to children, well, don't feel sad or don't feel bad. Here, have some ice cream, or we'll get some sweets, or we'll have pizza. Yeah. And children then learn, okay, you fix emotions by distracting yourself with food.
Huge. That's a huge one.
And then, later on in life, you can do that, and you can learn that habit, and then you can take that into your adulthood and learn that, okay, I need something else to fix my feelings. When I feel low, when I feel upset, okay, let's go and either buy myself something, or let's go and eat something, let's go and drink something, let's just distract it. Yeah. And you sit a lot, and I have a lady that I'm working with, she's going through the divorce, it's taking a year because there's lots of problems with finances and agreeing the finances, and she's upset. Her daughter, every time that the daughter goes to spend time with the dad is just buying the daughter things. That's all they do. So the daughter is upset because she misses her dad, and she says she's upset, and how could he have the affair? How could he be causing a lot of hassle for the mum? And again, probably knows too much. And then, they're just taught, well, I'll buy you, using spending to try and alleviate the pain. Whereas in reality, children need an open, honest discussion. This is how I feel, and given tools to cope. But healthy sort of feeling, and the child says, I'm feeling sad, and I sometimes feel sad, and when I feel sad, I call a friend. Would you like to have a friend come over to stay? It's healthy things. Or would you like to go for a walking? So teaching them how to deal with these feelings is key.
Yeah. And it sounds like, Nicola, that in some ways, even though you're doing that for the children, the adults probably need to learn that for themselves too in some ways, because they've been taught to distract themselves, and feel badly about having what are seemingly negative emotions. They're just passing on to their kids what they know to do for themselves, which doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I teach the parents how to deal with anger and release anger in a healthy way, how to deal with loneliness in a healthy way, how to deal with sadness. And some parents say, wow, I thought it was coming from my children, or most parents say, so I've actually got so much out of it for myself.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can absolutely imagine. And you always have to do that, don't you, really, because you want the parent to understand what they're doing with their children to support them, and also to be a role model for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's also, yes, we don't want to burden the children with the parents' emotions, but showing the children that it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Mum and dad sometimes feel sad too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so much work to be done in the world, around embracing all of our feelings and emotions and knowing that all of them are okay. I think some people obviously battle with the appropriateness of certain emotions in certain circumstances, but, there are ways to support ourselves in really embracing and honouring those feelings when they come up. So powerful stuff there, Nicola. So I know in your online group program and the one-to-one work for divorced parents that you cover some major ways parents must protect their children. Can you share a few of those with us?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the main ways, and I think this is probably the most important, is protecting their childhood.
Yeah.
Children are only children once, and they really need to have their children. And often when when parents get divorced, children can then take on adult responsibility. In the Arab world, it's quite common. I've worked with some Lebanese families and some other families where the eldest son will then take on the financial responsibility for the family often.
Oh, interesting.
That's a huge responsibility. And in the West, it's more emotional responsibility. So working with a lady called Tina and her husband Eric, and they were getting divorced. And the daughter, Claire, was so upset that Dad was living on his own. And she was so upset because she thought, well, I don't want to be on my own. And she said, I feel lonely, and so my dad must feel really lonely. And their situation was that Eric had done some things that he wasn't proud of, and the daughter knew everything. And this is the key, is protecting their childhood by not sharing all the details of a marriage breakdown. Children do not need to know what exactly went wrong, who has done what, because I think that can cause a lot of problems. I've had parents show their children on their phone, look, this is what your mum has been sending to another man.
Wow.
Messages, text messages, emails, photos. Sharing that with the children is not healthy of any age, even if they're teenagers. Is really damaging because children, they don't need to know that kind of thing. I've had teenagers say to me, "Oh, Mum said that it's around," or Dad said that Mum's a gambler, or Mum's an alcoholic, or it's just too much. They're already dealing with their own emotions around the loss, emotions around the divorce and the changes, but having these extra things to think about is too much for them.
It's interesting because it must be quite challenging in that way, because teens can often come across as mini adults and So it can be tempting as a parent to, give more information than they need, because they see them as a way to get support, I guess, which is obviously not the thing to be doing. But, the parent is dealing with their own issues and looking for ways to feel supported and right and all of those things. And, sharing that information with teenagers can be, I'm sure, very tempting.
Absolutely. I mean, divorce is one of the hardest things that someone can go through in their life.
Yeah.
And your child knows you, and they know the mum, and so, or they know the dad, and so it can be so easy to just let out.
Yeah.
And you're not coping. You're feeling stressed, down, hurt, angry, and it's natural to want to just share everything because you've got your own healing. So one of the major things really to protect your children is get support for yourself.
Yeah, I can imagine. Because the other thing as well is that, kids tend to be quite, I don't want to use the word manipulative, but, when you're a teen and you think that certain things have happened and you side with one parent and then the other parent just wants to lash out because they feel unheard and unsupported, that there's a whole dynamic there that plays out that, is often not healthy for anyone. And handling that must be quite difficult.
Yeah, it's a real challenge because there's so much rawness, there's so much emotions, and children often don't want to leave their parents' side.
Yeah.
And this is where the guilt comes in, where children feel, okay, I need to make both parents happy.
Yeah.
I'm responsible, and if I stay with dad, I can't leave my mum. I had a case where I was working with a couple in the UK, and their two children were so worried about the dad because the mum had left.
Yeah.
They were so worried about the dad that when the mum wanted to come and visit and wanted to see them, they didn't. When the mum said, "Look, let me come up, take you on holiday," they said no.
Yeah.
And they didn't say no because they didn't want a holiday. But they said, and not because they loved their mum to bits and they enjoyed spending time with their mum. But they said no to the holiday because they didn't want to leave the dad on their own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that situation, what we did is we said, well, you really want to enjoy the children want to enjoy you. So what the children did is they took it in turns. So one, just at the beginning, where one of the children was always with one of the parents, and then eventually they got more comfortable with the situation and built their confidence, and the parents also showing that I can cope without you.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why it is important to get support, whether at family, friends, an expert, a group support, an online support. It's just having an outlet so that you can take out your frustration, your hurt, your anger away from the children.
Yeah. I think there's a clear message here, Nicola, that, parents shouldn't look for support from their children. It's not healthy at all.
No.
And, I see it happen so often, just with different situations and friends and family members, where I see that happening and I can see how unhealthy that is, that's what I'm hearing between the lines here, Nicola, that don't be relying on your children to support you through your pain and, emotional journey. They need support of their own, and they must, the parents must get support for themselves, outside support that's going to really help them, heal.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. And even saying things like, "Oh, I don't want you to go away for the weekend with your dad. I'm really going to miss you.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I going to do without you?" Even things like that is confusing and upsetting.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. It's amazing how, and I think, sometimes parents. Well, I'm guessing, that a lot of the time parents don't even realize what they're doing when they are saying those things.
That's why I brought it up. Yeah, you're exactly right. So they think they're showing that they love their child, which they are.
Yeah.
But it's also then that stays with the child. Well, is mum going to be okay, or is dad going to be okay? And it's my responsibility to look after them. Of course, not the other way around.
No, exactly. So
the last way to really protect children is just protecting them from financial conflict.
Yeah.
And financial issues. And this one's very raw to me, because my mum would always say, "Your dad doesn't love you, he's not giving us any money." But children do not need to know who's paying for what if it can be avoided.
Yeah.
It's so, so many children will hear their parents over who is paying for the school trip.
Yes.
You owe this to you owe this. He needs some new trainers. Are you going to buy him some new trainers? He needs a new coat. And it's just, children just hear their parents argue about it, or even discuss about it, and they feel, I'm a burden.
Yeah.
I need stuff at school, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
I'm in their way. I'm costing them money.
Yeah.
They wouldn't argue if it wasn't for me. And that's the worst feeling for a child to have.
Yeah. And a lot of the time it's got nothing to do with the child. It's really more the animosity in the relationship between the parents, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you're really at a loggerhead with your ex where you can't even discuss these things, then I really recommend hiring a coach or getting a family friend to go between you so that you can have these discussions. Because sometimes they'll use children to get money off another parent, and that again is so painful, saying to a child, "Oh, ask your dad for this, ask your mum for this."
Yeah.
And the children know that probably it's not going to get the warmth, because they're stuck in the middle.
Yeah. Nicola, we touched on this a little bit earlier as well, which was about if a parent was to remarry or, in essence, start dating again. Do you want to talk a little bit about, how you would want to protect them in those situations?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. I mean, children can often really worry about their parents being with someone else, especially if they know that the other parent is going to be really upset, or they might feel threatened by the new partner. And this, I've worked with families where the children have got so stressed out about it that they've let it consume them, the worry consume them, that I'm not allowed to say anything about dad's new girlfriend to mum, and never ever encourage the children to lie. And that does happen quite a lot. Or some people a secret is so a stress for children. So I like to help parents calmly sit down with children when they introduce someone. There's different things as you need to say and how to do it and when to do it. And this I cover a lot in the Strengthen Children Through Divorce program.
Yeah, very valuable stuff, because I'm sure that's a big one. I've seen that again myself, just with family member, her ex getting remarried very quickly, and the impact that had on the kids, and just a whole new can of worms, right?
Yeah. I mean, some children can adapt really well, and some they don't. They feel that they're in competition with. And this is, when I was referring to this is referring to someone who's dating. But when a partner actually becomes and lives with them, then yes, step parenting needs to be managed as well.
Yeah.
and there's probably too much to go into here.
Yeah, I'm sure you could talk all day about this. So, what advice would you give someone if they're at the beginning stages of divorce and find it difficult to come to terms with or deal with?
My best advice really is to just take it one day at a time. Whether you're, contemplating a divorce at this stage, or you've started a divorce, it can be so easy to get overwhelmed by everything and not know where to begin. Because in a way, you're standing at the bottom of a mountain and you think, well, I've got to get all the way to the top.
Yeah.
And it's really can be overwhelming. So the first thing is to get a good support team around you.
Yes.
People that you can trust, people that you know won't judge you, you can say and express your true emotions to, and people that make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's really important.
Also to make sure that you plan your time in advance so that, for example, you've got a whole weekend without the children, or you've got a week here, or whatever that you've got things to do. You're not going to be on your own for a long period of time, because that can sometimes set you back in terms of the questions that you ask yourself. Many people get stuck on questions because they try and avoid these questions where they ask themselves, what's wrong with me, and what will people think of me, and what are people saying about me, and these questions are just things that instantly make you feel vulnerable and depressed. But for many people, so you need to switch those questions to focused questions on, okay, what can I do now? I'm feeling low. What can I do to make myself feel better? Who can I call? Who can I visit? What project can I get done in the house? Or what project can I do online? I had a lady email me because when I work with people on one-to-one, I don't just believe in the session. We have one session and then that's it. I'm not there to support them. So they have instant email access to me all the time where they can share their thoughts and what's going on. I'm there for them all the time. And so this lady said to me, I really don't know what to do, Nicola. I'm feeling really lonely. I'm feeling really down. I'm really angry as well. I can't have a third night not sleeping. And so she decided that she was going to, instead, I said, what can you focus on in the house? And she got out all of her photos that she'd been meaning to do with the children and put them into a new collage, and that made her feel really great. And then she got some photos online from her Facebook of her other family and her sister's children, and started doing a project like that. So it's really key to just ask yourself, what can I do for myself today? Or what can I do that's going to make me feel happier? Yeah.
And it's interesting because those things are very tangible things, whereas the other questions actually are not really answerable, right? They're such existential kind of questions in a sense that
absolutely.
They're not really. It's not going to be helpful from the point of view that they're not really answerable, and if you start to go down that road, all the things that you come up with are not going to be helpful.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what I say to people, that you can't answer these questions, so you just need to let them go. You're not going to know why everything happens, or I was just saying, these thoughts are kind of like mosquito bites.
Yeah.
If they bite you, they come up. Just let it go, or put some cream on it. But if you bite and you itch it, and you do that with your thoughts and you get into it, then that's when it can cause you problems. And just going back to the grief and loss, helping children cope, express your emotions, cry, journal your anger, have a healthy outlet for the emotions. Yeah,
that's really great. So there's clearly a lot for things for parents to consider and to learn. What would you say is the most important thing for parents to consider?
I would say, having worked with hundreds of individuals and families now through the divorce process, before and after, is not getting support too late, or when the co-parenting relationship is already destroyed, or when you're taking out your anger on the children, or you can't cope.
Yeah.
I think the sooner you get to be yourself, the sooner you're going to be able to help the children and create a healthier, happy environment. I had a lady, Anna, I was working with, and she was just exploding at everything, and it got really bitter between her and her ex-husband, where they got to the point where they couldn't stand up, they couldn't even be in the same room.
Yeah.
And that's a real shame for the children as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So is there anything else you want to share around that particular piece, with getting support?
Most of the people, when it comes to getting support, will see the benefits for them and for their children, but they say it probably won't work because my ex is a nightmare, or this kind of situation. And I think, really the only thing you can do is get support, because it can be very difficult on your own if you're dealing with someone that is controlling or manipulative, or that is deliberately trying to hurt you. And even if they're not trying to hurt you, even if you've got an ex where you're still friends, it can still be difficult when you go through the challenges of finances and agreeing the finances between you, of agreeing who sees the children, and agreeing the dating when they bring in another person, and having someone to talk to through those changes is really important. So what I offer a free Strengthen Children Through Divorce consultation, and a free 30-minute consultation where I discuss with these parents any fears that they may have when it comes to helping children through divorce or co-parenting, strategies to overcome challenges with their ex or their children, and steps forward and create a happier home environment. And so if anyone is interested listening into this, then they can book a free consultation, and we can discuss all of these things, and they can see if it's a fit for them, and if not, I can share some other resources that may be a better fit if they decide that they need something different.
Yes. That's wonderful, Nicola, because just gives people the space to sort out their feelings and what's going on for them, and to make some kind of a plan. But also, I just wanted to reflect with you that, it's such a lonely, I would imagine it's such a lonely and isolating experience that someone experiences when they're going through this, when you're trying to handle all these emotions. And even though you might have friends and family members that are very well-meaning as part of that support team, they often have a bias, around how they're thinking about certain things. And so, I can imagine it must be really helpful to have someone, who can really support you in an objective and loving way, but isn't going to be bringing in any sort of emotional or drama into the situation. You've got enough of that already. Having someone who can really support you in that way, I think, is so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with quite a lot of people, and they've said to me that the advice they've got from their friends or their family is a quite aggressive response.
Yeah.
Their family said, right, you should do this. You should not let him see the child. You should ban him from this, or ban her from that. Yeah. And that causes more hostility. I've worked with couples where the co-parenting relationship is so bad they call the police on each other.
Wow.
And they're constantly going to court where the divorce happened, or the divorce finished in the court 4 years ago, and they're constantly fighting.
Yeah.
And some cases where it's even longer.
Yeah.
I think in these cases it's not good to get advice from friends, and so you can have that aggressiveness.
Yes.
Or I know from my own experience, and I've worked with lots of women and men going through the same, you often have some family that are so in love with your old, your ex, they just, anything you say, they say, oh, they stick up for them. I mean, I remember whenever I finished my long-term relationship, my mum kept saying to me, oh, he's such a wonderful person. Are you sure you don't want to get back with him? And are you sure you've made the right decision? And I'll give them, and that is really confusing as well.
Yeah.
You don't need someone that is fighting the other way either. You just want someone that's going to help you.
Yeah, yeah.
Give you the right advice.
Well, I think that's the key, isn't it, Nicola? Because the people in your life are going to, they're going to be triggered in some way by this experience too. I remember even, one of my best friends who lived near me, a South African woman, she and her husband were very close friends, and they ended up getting divorced very suddenly. It was such a shock, for us. And, I can remember just even how I was triggered around the whole situation. And, it took me a year and a half to, work through forgiving her partner for what he had done in the relationship. And I know, that affected the way that I was supporting her as well. So it just makes so much sense, when we talk about this, with getting outside help.
Yeah.
Where would they go, Nicola?
Yeah, because we're all triggered by our own experiences.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you're involved to a certain degree, right? You have relationships with those people, so I think that complicates things. So where would people go if they were interested in having a 30-minute session, consultation with you, Nicola? How would they be able to sign up for that?
So they can go to my website, which is www.purepeacecoaching.com. That's Pure Peace Coaching. And on there I have, it says free consultation under the Help Children with Divorce section. Also on the contact page, so they can just email me. And my email address is nicola@purepeacecoaching.com.
And I'm sure they can also they can make an appointment even if it's not about their children, but just want support for themselves going through the divorce process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a free Get Unstuck and Divorce with Confidence session as well that is available. So
great.
That again is just contact me.
Yeah.
Because often individuals can get support for themselves.
Yeah. And
that helps the children anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, co-parenting can be a real struggle for many separated parents. What advice would you give for the children's benefits, Nicola?
Really, the key thing is not to use children as messengers. Yeah. Because often children it puts children in an awkward situation if they have to carry out a message that, you've got to drop me home now, Mum's not going to pick me up, or can you give us more money? And we mentioned the money. So these kind of messages, or messages saying, I'm not going to come and see you next weekend because I'm going away and doing this with the other parent. These are difficult for children in the co-parenting relationship, and they also, and I've seen it time and time again working with many parents, that it ruins the co-parenting relationship. Yeah. Because children can often not want to deliver that kind of message. Yeah. And so they don't deliver the message. Yeah. So parents are thinking, well, I've told them this and they haven't listened. And actually you haven't told them. You told the children to tell them, and the children have forgotten, or they have decided not to, or they've only told half of what's really going on. So not to use children as messengers, and it goes without saying also not to use them as a weapon in divorce. This is one of the saddest things I see. Yeah, terrible. In co-parenting relationships, where children are used as, okay, me, or you didn't do this, so I'm going to stop you seeing the children.
Yeah.
And that's so unfair, because whilst it does hurt the other parent, it hurts the children as well.
Yeah. You have to really look at it, children first, right? That's the priority, and then deal with your stuff between each other as a secondary focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this question, and I think it's important to ask yourself, do you hate your ex more than you love your children?
Yeah, that's powerful, Nicola.
And just to think of that, think of your children first.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. Excuse me.
Children need both parents.
Yeah.
Children love from both parents. So unless there's a serious reason, obviously, of abuse where they can't be together, then there should be any restrictions on whether they can see children or their children or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that there's so many different things that show up, when they are used as a weapon in that situation.
Yeah, it feels, the children know.
Yeah.
They can sense that. So.
Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to share there, Nicola, about your own personal experience with that?
Well, when my parents divorced, that was when I stopped eating, and I went very thin, and I was also being bulimic, which was a horrible thing really to go through. And it was obvious that I wasn't thin. I was thin, and my mum would, in front of me, shout at my dad and say, "Look what you're doing to her." And my mum would say to me, I've called up your dad and I've told him what he's doing to you, and you're not eating in your weight. And I just remember thinking, it's not Dad's fault.
Yeah.
and then I heard my dad, in retaliation to my mum say, "Well, she's living with you.
Yeah.
You're doing it to her." And not once in the whole time that I suffered with it, and it was for many years. Puritan. Say to me, "Nicola, what's wrong?
Yeah.
How can we help you? What's going on?" And nothing. It was just purely between themselves. And I remember feeling so angry and agitated that it's uncared for.
Yes.
That you're teaching me to hurt each other.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, because as a teenager, there's an awareness around that, right? So it's not like you are oblivious to what your parents are doing. There's a level of awareness, like you've just shared, Nicola, that you can see what they're doing. It doesn't necessarily give you the power to change it, but children are not stupid. They, especially from the point of view of being a little bit older, that you have that awareness around how they're affecting you, and that they're not necessarily taking responsibility for what they're doing either.
Yeah, and as a teenager, I really needed help.
Yeah.
And you see that with any of these warning signs that I mentioned. When children get really angry and aggressive, like my nephew got really angry and aggressive when his sister got divorced.
Yeah.
And he's saying, "I need the love, I need that attention.
Yeah.
I'm missing you. My mum has just left the house." And he was acting out.
Yeah.
And so they need support, they need love, and the best way that you can do this is if you can co-parent together. You can be there for your children and say, "Look, we're not going to waste our energy and time blaming each other. Let's focus together on the children." I mean, that's the ideal situation.
Yeah.
Or if you can't do that, then at least focus on the child yourself, rather than blaming. Blaming just is a waste of energy and doesn't help the children at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, Nicola, you've got a free chapter to share with folks listening, don't you? You know, to one of your books, I think, addresses this. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Sure. So I was in the Amazon bestseller, and it's called Putting Kids First in Divorce. And my chapter was about how to really help children and get through it, the do's and don'ts of what parents can do.
Yeah.
And I'm giving away that free. It's on my website, which is www.purepeacecoaching.com, and then they can just click on Children and of Divorce, and under there it will say free chapter.
Wonderful. That sounds great. And I think that you also have a free report, don't you? Protect your children through divorce and avoid the 3 most common mistakes.
Yeah, so actually what I've done now is if they opt for either one, they get access to both.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because I really want parents to have all the information they can. So if you choose one of those, then you'll get the other one as well.
That's
and
fantastic.
The 3 common pitfalls covers the 3 mistakes that most parents make unintentionally that harm children and how to avoid them.
Yeah, fantastic. That's really great. I'm sure there's so much more information there that you're sharing. There's only so much we can cover, right?
Yeah.
And I know you have a podcast show, Divorce Talk with Nicola Beer. Do you want to just share a little bit about, what you talk about there and, how it could be useful for folks to listen?
Absolutely. So my Divorce Talk is a show which is on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio. And it's free audio, for those that don't know what podcasts are. And you can go and listen to free. And I cover things like what to do if your ex badmouths you, what to do if people ask you awkward situations around the divorce, what to do if your child just refuses to see the other parent, and what to deal with the emotions of divorce. So there's lots of different episodes on anger, loneliness, rejection, feelings of failure that come with the divorce process.
Wow. I'm sure that there's a whole vault of information there that would be really supportive.
So all they need to do is go to either Stitcher, Radio, SoundCloud, or iTunes, and just type in my name, Nicola Beer, and it will come up.
And just for everyone listening, Nicola's last name, Beer, is spelt like the drink, B-E-E-R.
Yeah.
So, we're coming to the end of this conversation, Nicola, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here with us. This has been an amazing series. If there's one last pearl of wisdom that you'd like to leave our listener with, to best help their children through divorce, what would it be?
I would say that the most important thing, and I just touched on it there, and I thought I didn't really go into much detail about it, is really, as hard as it is, try not to badmouth the other parent.
Yes.
Because this causes so much damage.
Yeah.
I mentioned about myself and hearing that my dad doesn't love us because he's not giving us any money.
Yeah.
And that made me think, why doesn't dad love us? Why aren't we having money? And that's just one way. I've had teenagers turn around to me and say, my mum sleeps around, or my dad does this, and it's just, even if it's just small things you say about them, it doesn't help children. Children need to see their parent in a good light, and children need to be able to draw their own conclusions around their parents. And you don't want to affect their relationship with their parents. It's up to them to decide for themselves how their relationship is. And often I hear parents telling their children everything that the other parent has done.
Yeah.
It's just harmful because it stops children being children.
Yeah, robs them of their innocence, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they're already coping with their own emotions towards what's going on. They cannot take on any other emotions So that's really it. And I would say that it's important to remember that, yes, divorce is always going to be a difficult transition, but long term, it doesn't have to be a disaster. It can be good for children in various different ways if they have two loving homes and environments, if they have lots of attention from both parents when they're spending time with them, if they're taught that, how to go through a loss process and how to express emotions and how to, they can benefit from the process. It doesn't have to be devastating for them. So, I really believe that healthy families have nothing to do whether the parents live together or apart, that it's all to do with the love, support, and life coping skills that you provide children with.
Yeah. I think that's really important, Nicola, because ultimately I think children tend to be very adaptable, don't they? They tend to adapt very quickly to different situations. So it's really about supporting them from that place, that really allows them to do that in a positive way.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. So it's natural, and I go through this in the program as well, for children to feel sad 1 minute and cry, and then the next they go off and play. Yeah, that's natural, and that's what you want them to do, to release their feelings and then get on with it. But of course, they can't do that if they're constantly being dragged into the drama or the divorce.
That makes total sense. So any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Just that, children are only children for such a short period of time.
Yes.
And we just want to make sure that we protect them that time and they have a great childhood.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Nicola, for being here with us again. I want to encourage everyone listening to listen to all 3 episodes of this series. Thank you so much for being here and listening with us. I hope you took away a lot. Take advantage of the opportunity to have that conversation with Nicola if it feels appropriate to you. I can only imagine that it would be a real gift, if you were to do that. And, download her free chapter and get to know her by going to her website, purepeacecoaching.com. All right, take care, everyone, and keep your eyes peeled for our next episodes coming soon. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to Divorce Talk with Nicola Beer. If you have enjoyed the program, please leave a rating and review on iTunes so more people dealing with marriage breakdown and divorce get the support they need. If you want more great free resources, such as Secrets to a Happier Relationship, Moving on Fast After Divorce, or tips on parenting through divorce, be sure to visit www.purepeacecoaching.com today.